assured me of my call long before I was even open to the discussion. I've been disillusioned by the church. I've been hurt by the church. And quite honestly, I thought the church was a pretty dull place to spend your time and energy. My story of call begins by telling you I'm originally from the suburbs of Detroit, and I came to seminary via Ecuador in South America. A lot happened in between then. While I was raised in privilege, I was often unaware of my position in life. That drastically changed when I began tutoring as an adolescent in central Detroit, where the younger students I was tutoring lived very different lives than I did. Detroit at the time was vying for a position as murder capital of the world. And the children I was reading to were witness to that reality too closely and too often. Answers given by my elders as to the disparity and the violence I witnessed seemed belittling, naive, hasty, and at best were simply perfunctory answers. At the same time, during my adolescence, I began using drugs, which is another story that I'm going to share now, but I was pretty much looking for a way out of the guilt trip of church. So these poor answers and my own issues, I decided I'd become an agnostic. I'm a socialist, hippie, free guy. Way after it was cool to be so. I was a couple decades late, but that's what it was. But this exposure to suffering in the city, but also my own suffering, I began to realize that the majority of the world was experiencing something. And for me, it began a lifetime of learning in the systems that ensured my privilege and an awakening to a broader existence and of a grander family of humanity. Those kids meant something to me that my theology really couldn't handle what I had been given. And the God who resided in the midst of a hurting city began to shake me from my slumber to those realities. After picking up Spanish while working as a landscaper and visiting Mexico and Peru many times, along with a heavy dose of an overdose, I decided I would clean up, go to college and study Spanish and Latin American literature. That's the natural thing to do after hospitalization. Studying foreign language and literature should be the 13th step to sobriety, I think, but not everybody thinks that. While studying in Mexico, I began to take faith seriously and reconnected with the church after a powerful experience during an evening mass. I just went for a cultural experience because you have to understand the Roman Catholicism to understand Latin America. I wasn't expecting to be moved. I was moved by the passion of the bishop and the response of the people. In Latin America, I found a faith and spirituality that I'd never been aware of, one in which social disparities were not ignored or justified, but vehemently opposed, and central to the life of prayer and the lucha, the struggle. I spent the semester teaching English alongside Jesuits and lay people who went out of their way to provide an education to under-resourced students from rural Mexico. While in Mexico, I met a woman who proved to be a lifelong conversation partner and a faithful person who walked alongside me on that path to conversion. After graduating, we married and thought we would serve as lay volunteers for the church in community development and education for years to come. Jenny and our son Breck and I, we went to Ecuador with no clear plan on when we would return. We thought we'd be there for a long, long time. However, as I worked alongside brothers and sisters in Ecuador, I found myself being asked to fill a pastoral role. Just as I had been asleep to the presence of God in the midst of the violence of Detroit, Mexico, and Peru, or unaware of a life free of narcotics and the freedom of Christ, I was asleep to the call God had for me as a shepherd, un pastor. Yet God remains ever faithful even as we sleep, slowly waking us to the light of life. The Spirit so often moves through those around us to guide us into our gifting and call. I imagine details of the story of call abound, in the same way for you if you reflect on your call. We hum and haw at the manner God brought us to this place. All the people we encountered who journeyed alongside us, and the way God moves to them. In my remaining time, there are a few people I want to mention that encouraged me deeply on this journey towards this call. While serving in Ecuador, Jenny and I, we worked alongside a small church in an extremely remote part of the country. The leader of the church, an indigenous elder named Francisco, proves to have made an indelible imprint on Jenny and I. He's a humble man, he's a farmer, and a survivor of a horrific landslide. He helped lead his people to resettle in a sacred part of the jungle, which is now named after the covenant church there, El Pacto Sumaco. He is illiterate. I don't say that because I think that's that important to his leadership, but it is something he is acutely aware of and mentions often. He says, "I'm unworthy to be your elder, illiterate as I am." Then he proceeds to espouse some piece of amazing wisdom that rocks her world and draws her closer to God. His prayers are powerful and sincere. He communes with God through prayer in a way I do not. It is through his encouragement that I came here. After a meeting, I mentioned to him our possibly contemplating seminary. We each have gifts and opportunities, he said. People say that I have a gift for intercession and wisdom, but really I have the opportunity to work in my fields alone with God. And because I cannot read, my wife reads me scripture in the morning and I go off and talk to God about what I heard him say. You have the gift to read and think. That is something we need you to do. You now need to go and take that opportunity God has given you. When we did, came to Chicago, but now we didn't know where we were going or doing. Being a pastor was never in my plans, and it seemed that we could do anything now. Rural pastor? Why not? I like tractors. Manure? That's great. Urban pastor? Why not? I can see us serving the city. The variety of foods is always good at potlucks here. Chaplain? Why not? I like hospitals. Lactose look good on me. Missionary in Spain? I don't know. Wine and salami? It's not bad. But we felt a little bit adrift all of a sudden. We had become unsettled from the plans that we had. But again, God shook us out of our preoccupied slumber through the words of others. During degree candidacy, Sean Phil Anderson listened to my semi-bewildered predicament of not knowing my exact call, and really wanting to know my exact call. I think a lot of us struggle with that sometimes, especially as it gets near the end of our time here. They said, sure, we could do many things, and could serve in other ways. Don't ask God, could I do this? Ask, is this where my passion lies? What will bring out the most of the gifts and experiences God has given me? That wasn't always clear, but those guiding principles helped Jenny and I to look back at where we have been, what lessons were learned, and where those gifts and experiences would shape our vocation. We asked many around us to pray and discern alongside us. Later that very year, we were invited by the sister denomination Evangelical Covenant Church of Ecuador to seriously consider a call to return long-term and serve with the church there. It is a role that focuses our gifts and passions, pastoral care, education, and hospitality. While it's not that we still don't look at each other and say, what did we sign up for? Or that I think that each of our calls will work out in the same way as it did for us. I do believe God resides in what the former student Sam Poland calls the twilight zone of ministry, that murky space of unawareness, of unknowing, not really sure what direction God is pulling us. But as the song or the hymn in Ephesians reminds us, we are ever awakening from our slumber through the power of Christ's resurrection. We just have to be patient to hear him call and wait for that light to illumine. I'm grateful for these conversations and moments like this, the sharing of our collective stories, for the building up of the church, the healing of our pain and our own doubts, and the assurance of God's companionship. It seems we are awakening to the possibilities that God has for us. Awake, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine.